Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. Wow. We were navigating, coming in just a few minutes late. Appreciate your patience. I know time is money, so I appreciate that. Okay, I think we are ready to go ahead and call the meeting for the February 13th work session to order. And let's start with agenda item 1, 2. Agenda item 2 for roll call, Superintendent Hooker.
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Hottie Hensley.
Here.
Ms. Mary P. Bagby. Here. Ms. Linda Davies.
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager. Mr. Tim Denson.
Here.
Dr. Mumby Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant. Ms. Nicole Hull. And Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
All right, it looks like we have a quorum and we're ready to move forward with our agenda. All right, so for item 3, the board president report, I don't have much to report other than just a reminder that we do have our retreat next month. So please make sure that you have earmarked that on your calendar, and we will have full representation of the board. If you remember, we do not get credit for full board training unless we have every member present at the board meeting, at the board retreat. And there we will also do our self-assessment review from our October self-assessment. We'll look over the key milestones that we were intending on achieving, and we will see how that played out. And then we will also make sure that Dr. Hooker understands the period for his superintendent evaluation as well during that meeting. So there's going to be a lot going on, as well as the full board training. So make sure that you've earmarked that date on your calendar, and the agenda is forthcoming. I don't think I have any other items, but Mr. Evans, are there things that you would like me to address?
No, ma'am. I don't have anything.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So we will now move on to item 4, and this is the first read for a set of policies. And so just to remind you all and the public, the first read means that the district has already reviewed these policies, and this is their recommendation for either keeping, amending, or rescinding the policies. So this has already been reviewed by the district with their feedback. And what we are doing in this first read is providing our own recommendations on the policies presented to us. And then after this meeting, the district will return at our next meeting to discuss any of our recommended changes. So that's the process of the first read. So there's no action to be taken. It's just literally a conversation with our recommendations for changes to the set of policies presented to us. And I also want to make a note that in item F is a policy update from the superintendent regarding some of the policies that were addressed by members of the board around some of the issues that may be pertinent to students that are enrolled in the Clark County School District. All right, so we will begin with policy A, DF. Sorry, that's not right. Policy DF, revenues. And I'll just open up the floor for any thoughts, any questions, comments from any member of the board. Ms. Davis?
So I don't know if I made this entry in our spreadsheet or not, but when I read policy DF, it really does seem to just kind of cover the entire budget, right? And so one of my questions was, can I use policy DF to then track, connect to the budget line items to see if that is the totality of our approved spending for the year?
Okay. So that's a question that you're asking to our CFO?
Yes.
All right. Superintendent Hooker, are you okay with Mr. Greiner addressing that question?
Sure, Mr. Griner.
Yes, Ms. Davis. It covers the general fund revenues as well as other revenues as well. So typically the budget y'all are approving is the general fund budget. SPLOST is separate. Our school activity accounts are separate as well. But as far as the general fund, yes, it does cover all the revenues in the general fund. So,
So I should be able to map
yes, ma'am, on the general fund side.
on
Now,
the general fund side. Okay.
Now, school activity, I mean, that's tracked in a separate fund altogether. That's our school accounts, whether it be athletics or club activities. Typically, those are budgeted at the school level based on the revenues they expect to have each year. So that's a totally separate budgeting done at the school level.
Okay, and that is probably, as we go forward into the budgeting season, something I'd like more information on, because I think I was mistaken in, at one point, we pulled all of the school accounts back into the district to be managed and maintained, and they didn't have separate accounts. And so it sounds like we're not at that same place anymore. Is that correct?
Well, we have Ms. Jimenez, our internal auditor, does kind of oversee all those accounts, but each school has a separate bank account that they work out of. It's all through Synovus, which is our main account as well, but they do have individual bank accounts that are, you know, entries are made into those by our bookkeepers at each school, but Ms. Jimenez supervises all that activity as internal auditor. And that may be what you're thinking about. I think at that time, I don't think that internal audit position has always been there, but she's been in that role at least going back to when I was here in 2020 and previous to that. So she approves everything that goes through there. She makes sure the bank accounts are reconciled on a monthly basis by our bookkeepers and reviews those. And then does an actual audit process as well. Every school gets audited once a year. So,
Yeah.
That's good to know. Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, are there any other questions regarding policy DF revenues? Okay, so again, this is a first read, so if any sort of lingering thoughts come to you, feel free to send an email over to the district, and we will have a second read with our recommended changes and the district's recommended changes next month. Policy IHAA, final examinations. Any questions?
I posted those in our workbook.
Okay, would you like to make it public?
No.
Okay, public facing, okay. All right, any other thoughts? Okay, all right, so then let's move on to policy AFC, emergency closings, which is very relevant to this season. Any questions, comments? Okay, all right. We will then move to policy IHE, promotion and retention. Questions, comments? Yes, Ms. Hensley?
Is this just a language change because now we call it MTSS instead of RTI? It's just a language change. Okay, all right. I didn't know if it was a different, okay.
Yep, it is that simple amendment. But if others have questions or thoughts about any other aspect of that policy, this would be the time to bring those up so that we don't have to revisit these policy changes in the future or in the near future. Yes, Dr. Gant?
I think I put a couple of questions in the document, and so maybe that'll help guide any additional questions.
Okay.
And I'm happy if I need to read those further.
Yeah, if you want it for, public consumption at this meeting, that might be a good idea. Some members are okay with just leaving it to the district, so it's up to you.
Let me see. Sorry. This was IHE, right?
Yes.
I just wanted to be reminded where we could find, I see it's already answered, but where we could find the retention data for each school and then the percentage of students who have not met the grade level standards, because it seems like that's what that policy was dealing with. Sort of the students that we technically retain are ones that have not met the standards. I think it was like a couple of assessments mentioned for like particular grades. And so I just wanted to see a little bit about how those percentages match up. But I see that I think Dr. Scott put a link here, and I'll have to maybe go and take a look, and then I'll follow up with any questions.
Okay. Yes, I do see where they answered some of those. But if you do have follow-up, again, this is the first read, so you can certainly address those to the district before we have our next meeting, and then they can respond to those questions in the public space. Are there other questions about policy IHE, promotion and retention? Okay. Okay. And Dr. Scott, so Dr. Gant kind of mentioned some follow-up that might be needed for, okay. All right. Okay. So now we are at E, policy BCBI, public participation in board meetings. So I did not mention this in the president's report, but during our agenda setting, we did recognize that there are some B policies that are the best space to have those conversations will be at our board retreat. So there will be an agenda item to talk specifically about some other B policies and not necessarily what's listed here. But this particular one is relevant to tonight's meeting because it's a response to some lawsuit stuff that has required boards to respond to making changes to their policies regarding the result of that lawsuit. So that's why this particular B policy is on the agenda, but there will be other B policies that we will discuss at our retreat. So with that information in mind, are there any questions, comments about BCBI? Okay. Yes, Ms. Davis?
I think I did make entry again in our spreadsheet about BCBI, because there were a couple of things that seemed like there was no recourse pretty much for the abusive language piece of it, especially from public participation. And so I'm glad that we're going to have more discussion about it, and I hope that we can actually have some open discussion about how do we best handle that, because if you're sitting here and you're personally offended, then I think it pretty much says just suck it up, right? Just, yeah, that doesn't feel so warm and welcoming or equitable in any way.
Yeah. And just to be clear, BCBI was not going to be included in our board retreat since we were going to discuss it tonight in our next board meeting. But if you all would like to include it on our board retreat, we can absolutely include it for further discussion. This language specifically addresses what the lawsuit requires us to address. But yes, we can do that. So, Mr. Evans, you will make a note to remind us that we are adding this one to the set of B policies for our March retreat. Okay, any other questions or comments regarding BCBI? All right. So if approved, my public comment script will change, and that's what we're doing. Okay. Next up is a policy update from Superintendent Hooker, and this is kind of centered around some of the conversations that we had with the district, with the superintendent around protections for our students regarding some of the administrative changes that are resulting in some fears in our community. So, Superintendent Hooker.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, board members, for allowing me this opportunity to share with you as the immigration enforcement policy change. As we found out the information on January the 21st, we quickly I spoke with the cabinet members as well as with Dr. Moore. I sent an email to Dr. Moore and asked her I forwarded to Mr. Pruitt and said, Mr. Pruitt, we need guidance for our principals as we return to school as to how do we handle this situation. And Mr. Pruitt worked with our cabinet as well as Dr. Moore and Mr. Pruitt worked on this step by step, as the next slide will show you. On the 24th, when we were out that Wednesday and Thursday, our principals came back. We had a detailed meeting with them as to how to respond if ICE or other federal officials came questioning our students. So, and I shared that guide with you on that following Saturday, I believe the 25th of January. I shared the documents that we shared with the principals. Each principal that following Monday had a conversation with their staff as to how to handle that and what our roles were as educators, professional neutrality, protecting student privacy, supporting vulnerable students, and how to respond to concerns and resources for staff. The next slide, as you will see, Mr. Pruitt as well as Dr. Moore worked and together to ensure that we included information that our policies covered, all of the policies that was identified during our group me conversation as to how was this addressed using our policies. As you can see there, we outlined those in the response that we had given to our principals as well as to other personnel. And, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Palmer, I don't think we have this presentation in the agenda item. Oh, okay. It's just really hard for us to see it on the screen. Okay, thank you. I just can't read, like, these are my old eyes, and I can't see anything, but okay, sorry.
Okay. We were able to walk through the guidelines with our principals and leaders and to share with you, as of today, no one from Immigration and Customs Enforcement or the Department of Homeland Security has entered any of our schools at this point. All documents that we shared with our principals and leaders, it was not just our principals, we had district leaders, our social workers, our psychologists, and other members of district office during that meeting. All the documents that we were shared was vetted through our attorney, Mr. Pruitt, and we're very gracious of the time that he took to vet that information. We wanted to make sure we were doing what's best for students. So if you refresh your computers at this time, the document is attached. And if you have any questions of me at this point, I'll be glad to answer them. I know you do not have this before you, so I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to review it, and then any questions I'll be glad to respond to.
Thank you, Dr. Hooker. We really do appreciate just sort of like a summarized review of how these policies relate to our students and in what measures you all as a district can implement these policies on the ground. So we really do appreciate that. Are there questions, are there comments, are there thoughts that you all as board members have in response to not just the policies that are presented, but the response of the district in addressing these policies for our students? Okay, the first slide I saw was Ms. Davis.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
So my comment is I really was very appreciative of receiving that package of information. It put my heart at ease, put my mind at ease. I felt like I was connected to our community. I am sorry, I have an alarm that I can't get rid of. So again, thank you for sharing that information. It felt like that when people spoke with me about what they received, I could at least have an intelligent conversation. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Okay, I saw Mr. Denson's hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also do appreciate the school district's response here. I would like, if we could have room at the retreat to possibly discuss some of these policies. And also, of course, this is a very fluid thing, as we see there's state legislation being discussed right now that would possibly impact some of this too. So I would love for us to have some room to be able to discuss this further and, just looking over all of our policies that many of them listed here and ensuring that they kind of capture what we want. Because I agree that I think Dr. Hooker has done a fantastic job responding to this. But I want to make sure that all of those things that we felt like were such a good response are actually baked into our policies, so that no matter who is the superintendent, this will be the policies that guide our school district, and we're protecting our children right now, but also years from now. So yeah, I would, if we have some time in our retreat, and while y'all are working on the agenda, if we could have it on there, I would appreciate it.
Okay. And so just to be very clear with what we want to have presented to us at that retreat, are we talking about all of the policies that are noted in JBC, JQM, JQKA, and JR, less or more or the same?
All of those, and then also, which I haven't looked through, but any potential policies that talk about how SROs and CCSD police would be potentially cooperating with ICE or federal agents. Any kind of policies with that, and if no policy is around that, potentially this discussion around it.
Okay. And I believe LDA, JA was also included, but for some reason it's acting very strange in my assembly. But okay, that sounds good. Let's see. And I also think that there could be space to talk about some of the concerns that board members had about, I don't know, issuing a public statement or just sort of like standing in solidarity in some way. It's not perfect. It's never the most ideal way, but just sort of stating that you support that community, I think, could be impactful, and that could be a space where we can have that conversation as well. Okay. Other thoughts, questions around these? Dr. Gant?
This may be a retreat question, but wondering if we could just have some data on things like attendance. And I'll place other questions here as I think through them. Okay.
Yeah. That's a really good point, how attendance has been impacted or potentially the seeking of mental health services in response to these changes. Okay.
And Dr. Gann, I can share with you, we have been keeping track of that data since February the 5th, or even before then. Before then, every day we keep track of that. So yes, we have data to share with the board.
Okay. All right. Are there other thoughts, questions? Okay. All right. So that wraps up item 4F, and now we are on to G. Any future policies that you all would like presented to the district for consideration, revisions, discussion, et cetera? Okay. Okay. All right, so we will now move on to item 5, and these are the business items for discussion for consent agenda. Just as a reminder, we will just go down the list, and if you would like an item pulled from the agenda, just please raise your hand high and say you want it pulled, and then we will open the floor for questions about that particular item. So A, January 16th, 2025 work session and board meeting minutes. Consent. Item B and C, personnel and contract list, we'll actually discuss at the executive session. So for now, let's just leave it on the consent, and then we can pull it after the executive session if we need to. Item E, Head Start, Early Head Start Governing Body Annual ERSEA Plan and Selection Criteria Approval.
Don't forget D.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Let me go. I'm sorry. Let me go back to D because I skipped it. Field trips. No one ever pulls field trips, so I think we're good. Okay. All right. Now the Early Head Start Governing Body Annual ERSEA Plan and Selection Criteria Approval, and Ms. Davis asked for that to be pulled. Are
Yes.
there particular questions or thoughts that you would like to present?
Yes, I read, okay, so I didn't get to this one until today, so I didn't get through that 138-page document. I'm wondering if there is just a synopsis of the changes that are in that document and what they impact. And I think I did put this in our question document as well. Do we have any indication of changes coming down the pipe that might affect Head Start and early Head Start in terms of its funding under the new administration?
Ms. Moon, would you step to the podium and give a brief answer to her question, please? To Ms. Davis' question.
At this moment, we have not been made aware of any cuts in funding. The OMB, Office of Management and Budget, rescinded the memo. And so we're in the same situation as all of the other federal grants that were implicated.
And a follow-on to that is, how are we doing now with Head Start, early Head Start? What is our enrollment? What is our vacancy rate? Do we have a waiting list?
Monthly, we provide a report that is, I guess, later in the agenda, and it has our monthly waiting list. We are, as of our most recent end-of-month report that we submit to the Office of Head Start, one shy of being fully enrolled.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Ms. Moon Davila while she's up? I wanted to ask Ms. Davis's original question, if there's a way that you could give like a 2-bullet summary of what the changes that were outlined in that document were. I mean, there were some tables and things, and it's not quite clear. It wasn't quite clear like what's new and what's...
Okay. And I brought a copy of it with me to refer to. The selection criteria is annually updated based on the information that we collect during the program term and within our community assessment. We also make adjustments when there are changes in the federal regulations. So, for example, the Office of Head Start made a change that when there is a family that is over income, we are allowed to document the gross, the total cost of housing and compare it to the gross income. And then if the housing costs exceed 30% of a family's income, then we are able to make an adjustment in order to determine if the family would be eligible under the federal poverty guidelines. The next change is because we serve in our early Head Start program pregnant moms, that includes teen parents or other parents who are expecting that live in Clark County, prenatal services to ensure the school readiness. The ultimate goal is school readiness. So healthy pregnancy, healthy baby, healthy student. So what was happening within our selection criteria is that once those babies were born, they were sitting on the waiting list. So we added additional points to have continuity of care, ensure continuity of care of those high-risk pregnancies. Another adjustment that we...
She's going to do the bullets to show what the changes are and get that sent to you. Is that okay? That's what was asked, right?
Yeah, if that's going to be in the subsequent presentation. Okay. I think it was just nice to kind of hear just like a summary from that longer document.
And I
like
only
what-
had one other change.
Okay.
That for incarcerated, we give points for children whose parents are incarcerated.
Okay.
So we distinguished the word detained in this document so that we could provide priority for children and families that are in crisis.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's
Okay.
very helpful, thank you.
All right, are there other questions? So this item was pulled. Would you like it added back to the consent agenda? Okay. All right, so we're adding item E back to the consent agenda. And now we've got item F, the Early Head Start Governance Plan, Policy Council bylaws, and governance training.
Okay, let me turn this on.
Consent?
I think we're still required by federal law to do the governance training, though. But
They
thank
do
you
an
for trying to cut through.
I can sit back down, that's okay. Okay, so let me put this down here for a moment. Kind of got off track. So for this presentation, this is a mandatory presentation under the requirements for the Office of Head Start. And let me just by saying greetings to board members and CCSD leadership and community members. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Angie Moon de Avila. I'm the coordinator for Early Head Start and Head Start under the Department of Academics and Supports in the Office of Early Learning. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide the annual governance training and program eligibility training in order to reinforce requirements, federal requirements for management structures and systems, management oversight, and high-quality services to early Head Start and Head Start children in accordance with the regulations. So there are governance requirements written in the Head Start Act that really, a lot of those requirements are already reflected in board policy. So some of this is going to sound a little bit like, oh yeah, we do that. So the Head Start Act and the performance standards refer to the governing entity as the governing body, and the Board of Education is the governing body, which is legally and fiscally responsible for the program and the governance activities as specified in the Act. And many of these responsibilities are also referenced in the Policy Council bylaws that are on the agenda for your consideration this evening. And those board responsibilities, I've narrowed them down to 9 bullets. So ensuring that we have active, informed, and independent governance structure, compliance with federal regulations, that the board has a role in developing, planning, and evaluating the Head Start program. So for example, every school implements a school improvement plan. The Office of Early Learning with the 2 early learning centers, we participate in that as well with our impact checks. We provide monthly reports and conduct annual self-assessments. The Board of Education develops procedures for the Policy Council member selection, which again is in the bylaws. The board has a responsibility for establishing criteria for recruitment selection and enrollment, which is what we just reviewed, to establish a weighted waiting list that allows us to select the family most at risk for their children not being ready for school. Establishing impasse procedures for collecting and reporting required information, establishing committees, reviewing and approving funding applications amendments, major policies, approving financial management, accounting, and reporting policies, adopting written standards of conduct, monitoring actions to correct audit findings if there are any, and actions to comply with laws and regulations that govern financial statements and accounting practices. And finally, reviewing the results of monitoring and follow-up activities to ensure that we're in a state of continuous improvement and offering high-quality, comprehensive services in accordance with our federal regulations. The Early Head Start program and Head Start program is funded to serve 336 children. We utilize research-based, developmentally appropriate curriculum, and we provide services that offer a variety of modalities to meet the needs of the families in our community through center-based services, home-based services, and through services to enrolled expectant women. Finally, our eligibility requirements. We must have methods to determine income and age eligibility, which includes verifying and documenting such eligibility. We must have a process to ensure that this determination is carried out in a consistent manner, which includes training staff, interviewing parents, collecting documentation such as birth certificates, signed eligibility determination records, and documenting all of this information in our student information system, which is Child Plus. We take an application, we verify the application, and we audit the application. In addition, we are required to have in place, which exists through board policy, consequences for attempting to provide or intentionally provide false information. We have our rules and conditions of employment, our personnel ethics, letters of directions, professional development plan, and up to and including termination. The consequences for a family that provides false information could result in them losing services. And finally, we have to ensure that anyone conducting our interviews do it in a way that respects family composition and to understand how to work with families that are experiencing very sensitive situations, circumstances, for example, domestic violence. We have a process that we go through to ensure that the families get the services that they need when they walk out the door. And that concludes my presentation, and I would just like to thank the board and the central office staff for your support of the Early Head Start and Head Start program. Our initial grant was awarded in the year 2000, and this is our 25th year of serving expectant women and children birth through age 3. And I just wanted to make it a note that this is in addition to pre-K and preschool special education.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moon-Davila. Are there questions? Yes, Ms. Bagby?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to know, in this Head Start program that you have, is this a part of the lottery ticket people, that you have to pull a lottery ticket?
The pre-K program is the only program that utilizes a lottery, and that's in accordance with state regulations.
And do the parents, do the father have to be not in the home for them to receive this subsidy?
For Early Head Start and Head Start, the father does not need to be in the home, and that's included in the definition of family, which is how we determine the gross income for eligibility.
All right, are there other questions? Okay, thank you so much for that presentation and our annual training. And if everyone is okay, we will keep that on the agenda unless there's any objection. Okay, all right, fantastic. Okay, and so we are now to item G, the Winterville roof repair. Okay, all right, keep that on the agenda. And then last item H, Cedar Shoals Phase 3A furniture purchase. All right, looks like everybody's good. So I don't see anything where everything's on the consent, right? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so now we are over to item 6, and that is, hold on a minute. Is that in the work session? Oh, okay. Okay, all right. So a review of the, of Mr. Grinder's presentation, is that what we're doing here in this part, or just a review of the resolution? So what the document that's in the, okay. So now we're at item 6, and that is 6A, to review HB 581 resolution opt-out. So the document is there for us to look over, and if we have any questions, thoughts, comments, this would be the space to discuss it before the vote at our board meeting. Questions, comments? Okay, so if everybody's good with the resolution as presented, we will go ahead and add this as an action item to our board meeting starting at, okay, fantastic. So that takes us down to item 7, executive session, and we do have some executive session items to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent. So that's why we are going into executive session. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second.
All right, motion made by Ms. Hensley, seconded by Mr. Evans, and all in favor, raise your hand high, say aye. Aye. Okay, we are now moving to executive session. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. Apologies for being just a few minutes late. All right, we are ready to get our February 13th board meeting underway. We'll start with item 1, call to order. Superintendent Hooker.
Thank you, Madam Board Chair. Ms. Heidi Hensley,
Here.
Ms. Mary P. Bagby, Ms. Linda Davis,
Here.
Dr. Patricia Yeager, Mr. Tim Denton,
Here.
Dr. Mombi Anderson,
Here.
Dr. Lakeisha Gant,
Here.
Ms. Nicole Hole, Mr. Mark Evans.
Here.
All right, looks like we have a quorum and we're ready to proceed with the agenda as presented, well, for now. And sorry, it was a call to order, but that was our roll call and now we have a quorum. So we're ready to move to item number 3 at this point. So we are on 3, the silent meditation and pledge of allegiance. We'll take just about 30 seconds for a silent meditation and then turn around, face the flag for, stand up, turn around, face the flag for pledge of allegiance. All right, thank you so much. And now we will stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much. And we will now move to item number 5, and that is our time for public participation.
Awards and recognitions, ma'am.
Uh-oh.
4.
Sorry, on item number 4. I almost skipped you, Dr. Moore. I'm so sorry. Oh, boy. Okay, item number 4 are awards and recognitions. Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Hooker. Good evening, board members. You know you would have broken my heart if you'd skipped me. We're getting to our very busy time of the year with student and staff awards and accolades, and we have quite a few recognitions this evening, so it's a happy night. First of all, we're going to start by recognizing our 2025 District Spelling Bee winners. Every year, each of our elementary and middle schools hold school-level spelling bee competitions in December and January, with each school's winner advancing to the District B in late January. Out of our 18 competitors in this year's District B, we are pleased to be joined tonight by our winner and runner-up, and I'll ask each of them to come up as I call their name. Our runner-up is Oyas Kulkarni, 8th grader from Clark Middle School. Oyas, please come on up. Thank you. It's hard to be the first one. And our 2025 Spelling Bee champion, who is moving on to represent CCSD in the Georgia Association of Educators Region 7B in Putnam County next weekend, is Lizbeth Castro, 8th grader from Coyle Middle School. Lizbeth? And a note about Lizbeth as she's coming up. This was the 4th year in a row that Lizbeth made it to the district level B, representing J.J. Harris Elementary as a 5th grader, and then all 3 years at Coyle Middle, including last year when she was district runner-up. And I understand, Lizbeth, that you went to the competition just to check it out and see how it works, so you're ready for a win this year. Is that correct? Yes, that's great. Let's give both of these students and all of our 2025 school winners a big round of applause. Thank you. You may be seated. Special thanks to Dr. Jennifer Bogdanich, Gifted Curriculum Coordinator for CCSD, for organizing the spelling bee, to Dwayne Cumbus, our pronouncer, as well as to our judges, our IT team who's facilitated the live streaming of the event for all the schools to enjoy and cheer their winners along, and to all of the other many staff volunteers who took time out of their day to once again make this a very successful event. Again, congratulations to Ojas and Lizbeth. Next, we'd like to recognize a sophomore at Cedar Shoals High School for an outstanding achievement and prestigious recognition he has received. At this time, I'd like to invite Nate Goudry to come up to the stage. Nate? Nate was among 30 students from across the entire state who were selected to participate in the 2025 class of Youth Lead Georgia. Facilitated by the University of Georgia's J.W. Fanning Institute for Leadership Development, Youth Lead Georgia is designed to equip teens with the skills and knowledge necessary to be the future leaders of our state. Youth Lead Georgia graduates will put their skills and knowledge into action and work together to tackle the challenges that impact Georgia's future vitality. Nate and the other 29 10th and 11th grade students who were selected by an external committee from more than 340 nominations received by UGA will be participating in 4 weekend retreats held in different communities across the state, as well as a 4-day summer bus tour of South Georgia. Experiential activities, in-depth dialogue on current issues and challenges facing Georgia, as well as opportunities to interact with prominent business and community leaders will complement that leader training. Nate is joined tonight by his family, including his mother, Laura, who is one of our special education teachers at Cedar Shoals. Let's give another big round of applause to Nate Guidry. Thank you, Nate. You may be seated. Next up tonight, do we have any of our STAR students with us? Okay, I'll give you a little look into the future. Some of them said they may be able to come and may not be able to come because they have lots of other things going on tonight. You can see our STAR students here: Sebastian Colo, Wyatt Meyer, Luke Slikel-Kelman, it's not right, and Riley Wares. These students were honored at a recent STAR student banquet hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm pleased to announce that one of our own, Sebastian, was selected as the system winner. By system winner, I mean he had the highest SAT score on any given day and is in the top 10% of his class for all students within the Clark County area. So that includes Monsignor Donovan and Athens Christian, correct? So next month, we will ask them back when they are not tied up with soccer and hope to get their teachers here with them because they each identify a teacher who has been particularly impactful in their lives. And so we'll wait until then, as we'd really like to have them here so you all can congratulate them and talk with them about their future plans. All right, moving right ahead. Next tonight, I'd like to recognize our Employee of the Month for February. And at this time, I'd like to ask her, Ms. Shawn Hinger, to come forward. Ms. Hinger? For those of you who don't know Ms. Hinger, she is the media specialist at Clark Middle School. Ms. Hinger is in her 22nd year at Clark Middle and has been one of the biggest champions of literacy throughout the district during her career in education, which I understand is 22 years now, helping lead the charge in our district's renewed culture of literacy campaign to improve educational outcomes for all students. These efforts were the basis of her Employee of the Month nomination, submitted by Molly Schubach, CMS instructional coach and former OWL student herself. Ms. Schubach writes that since the beginning of the school year, Ms. Hinger has worked tirelessly to engage teachers, students, and staff in embedding literacy in all that we do at CMS. She is promoting, celebrating, and championing leisure reading across all disciplines. Her leadership has been transformative, and we are seeing the fruit of her labor. She has been persistent and dogged in her conversations with all teachers about what they are doing to promote literacy in their classrooms. As a result, students are engaging in more independent reading, talking about and celebrating books, and truly embodying a culture of literacy. Shawn is changing the narrative and trajectory of literacy at CMS, and she deserves to be recognized for her efforts. CMS Interim Principal Derek Maxwell adds that Ms. Hinger exemplifies, promotes, and sustains a culture of literacy from across our entire OWL community. Each day at Clark Middle School, this is evident in all of our learning spaces. And what is far more powerful is the lifelong love of reading that she instills in our OWLs, a passion that carries on with them for the rest of their lives. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Maxwell, Ms. Schubach, and the board up to have their picture taken and to say a big thank you and congratulations to Ms. Hinger. As always, we want to thank the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce for their continued partnership in our Employee of the Month program and for supplying the Employee of the Month gift bag each month with numerous gifts from local businesses. You'll have fun going through that later. And as a reminder, we want to again encourage everyone in our community to nominate any full-time CCSD employee with at least 1 year of service for this award. You can follow the link or the QR code on the screen there. Okay, look this way. If you can't see the camera, it can't see you. Wonderful. Again, thank you for all you do, Ms. Hinger. We appreciate you and your efforts. Thank you. And finally tonight, we'd like to recognize our school-level accounting professionals and members of our CCSD Business Services Division for their recent completion of the School Financial Accounting Personnel Certificate Program through the Carl Vinson Institute of Government at the University of Georgia. The program is designed for K-12 school-based support personnel who are responsible for the day-to-day operation of their school's accounting and funds, budgets, purchasing, payroll processing, and ensuring their school's financial procedures are in line with local board policies as well as state and federal laws. To earn their certificate, participants had to complete 24 program hours through a variety of instructional activities covering the program's core curriculum, a pre- and post-program accounting survey, and a financial management school-level project and presentation. The project is intended to demonstrate the participants' ability to apply the skills and knowledge acquired during the program, as well as to provide a direct benefit to the school. Through successful completion of this program, both our new and veteran school-based accounting personnel are now equipped to promote enhanced accountability by advising and supporting school administrators charged with the responsibility of financial management, as well as educators who are entrusted with public funds and property. We'd like at this time to have all of those bookkeepers and Business Services Division members who are with us tonight to come up to the stage for a quick photo together. And we'll invite Dr. Russell Cook from the Carl Vinson Institute, who is able to join us this evening for that photo. So if you all will make your way up, and we can go ahead and give them a round of applause. I kind of wish we had some music, like Money, 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 or something like that. Thank you all. Just stretch out across the front there. Thank you all for providing this wonderful opportunity for our financial staff. And now scooch in together just a little bit. There we go. I see some familiar faces. Move over a little bit more. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you for putting in this extra effort, and congratulations on your completion of the course. Now, this concludes our recognitions for February. I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Anderson, for any recognitions you and the board may wish to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, everyone, on such well-deserved achievements. And this is just an amazing display of all of the wonderful things that are happening here in the Clark County School District. Do board members have anything that they would like to recognize anyone for, or celebrations? Okay. All right, so thank you so much. If you were here specifically for that particular agenda item, do not feel like you have to stick around. You will not hurt our feelings if you want to just kind of shuffle out of here. It's absolutely okay. Right now, we will move on to our next agenda item, and that is public comment. I, Ms. Palmer, do not have anyone who signed up for public comment before our noon deadline this afternoon. Here, let me see if I can pull that. I don't think that there was anybody on there. Okay. So we are going to move on to our next agenda item since we do not have anyone signed up for public comment. And that is agenda item 6, to amend or adopt the agenda as presented. I need a motion on the floor.
Make a motion to accept the agenda.
A second.
All right, that motion is made by Mr. Denson with no amendments, seconded by Ms. Hensley. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. And all in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to our consent agenda items. And just as a reminder to the public, these items were individually discussed and decided to stay on a singular vote on the consent agenda. Oh my gosh, I keep skipping agenda items. I'm so sorry. Okay, where are we? Oh boy, yeah, I skipped like 6, 7 things. I'm so sorry. Now we are at item 7, the superintendent's report. Dr. Hooker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. February is Black History Month, and we are proud to celebrate the contributions and impact of Black history makers who have worked to have an impact on our school district, as well as our city, our state, and our country. February is also the month we recognize National Children's Dental Health Month, Career and Technical Education. Last week, we also observed School Safety Week and celebrated our school counselors during the National School Counselor Week. Coming up, we have National School Resource Officers Day, February the 15th, National FFA Week, February the 15th through the 22nd, Public Schools Week, February the 24th through the 28th. You have at your seat a flower arrangement created by Clark Central's FFA students as part of their floral design course to honor your work in recognition of some of these special weeks. And finally, as a reminder, schools will be closed tomorrow and Monday. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that report, and thank you for reminding me that there is no school tomorrow and Monday. My kids would have been there bright and early. Appreciate that. All right, our next item agenda is item 8 for the facilities updates.
Yes, and Mr. Mark Bailey will be presenting on behalf of Dr. Askew.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bailey, welcome.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm really excited to show this presentation. This is something we've been talking about for doing a long time, and without your support, we could not have gotten here. But we now have LED sports lights at both our high schools, Clark Central and Cedar Shoals. Unfortunately, I was only able to get a few pictures of the baseball field. If you look closely, there's still some snow on the ground out there. It was really cold that day. But one of the things we talked about as we were planning for LED fixtures, and one of the reasons why is the light cutoff. If you look at the picture, you can see on the fence, we are lit all the way up to the green grass, and then as it comes across that fence, the light starts to break. We're not having spillage into neighborhoods. We're not having light rays going all over the place. Everything is controlled and it's on our fields. That's one of the biggest benefits of the LED systems. And if you notice, all the poles, all the lights are beaming down. This system was chosen not to have any uplights due to air flight that goes across Clark Central and Cedar Shoals, possibly. Like I said, this is just some random shots around the field. I'm at the home dugout, Clark Central, and there is a little bit of snow there around the home plate. This is looking back out toward right field. Now you can see the gym over there is really well lit on the sides, but as you go down that wall, that long wall to the left, picture, it starts to get dark. So again, we've got containment of the light within the sports field. And this is looking across out at left field and left center field. Went down to Cedar Shoals. This is one of the metal poles. We talked about having wooden poles out there. I don't know if you know or remember, but that used to be a baseball field that they converted. So all the lights were probably 40 yards from the actual playing field. So we went ahead and pulled up metal poles and pulled them closer to the fence for the softball field. That is the pole stuck in the ground, and the head is laying on the ground. So I took a minute to go over there and get up front, close and personal, and let you see the product we selected to put out there. It's got locking pins, and everything is dialed into to a pinpoint on the field as to how many lumens those things are putting out. I hope this plays. I'm sorry it was kind of gray outside, but we've got the lights doing a scene. This is the selection called random. It's very short. I didn't want to burn up too much of your time looking at the lights, but you see just randomly around the head, it lit up in sequence. This is sparkle. And this is pitch black to full on. No more lights, having to wait for them to warm up, cool down, or etc. That's amazing to me. I do appreciate your support in helping us see this project through. I really appreciate you. Any questions?
All right. Ms. Hensley?
No questions, but I have these lights in action, and the kids are super excited about the fact that they flash when they walk out and stuff. So we do appreciate that we have upgraded to this level.
Yes. I do apologize to any residents around Cedar Shoals. That was about 6:30 in the morning. I was flashing those things, but I had to get a video to show you. But again, from my heart, thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. And now we are ready to move to item 9, our SPLOST monthly report. Mr. Gilbreth?
Good evening, board members. Ms. Palmer, if you could play the slides. I've got a short slideshow for you for Clark Middle and Cedar Shoals. We are, so we'll start with Cedar Shoals. We're into phase 3 of Cedar Shoals, which we're working on the fine arts building, some of the sports fields, and auto shop, and the auditorium. You can see here all of the metal building material for the ROTC building is on site. So once foundations are in, we'll start setting that building. Next picture is some foundation work going in at the auto shop. Footings are going in, steel's here. These are the finished tennis courts. I think Ms. Gant, you had a question about the tennis courts. So we're in and operational, so we're good to go. And this is the expanded baseball parking area. We've got some lights that we're going to be putting down there as well. So that'll complete that portion of the project. This is the outdoor eating area outside of the cafeteria. The furniture has been delivered and is being assembled, so the students will have an option to go outside. And this is the renovated, expanded cafeteria at Cedar Shoals. Clark Middle, we're wrapping up there. They're going to change over to the traffic pattern coming off of Baxter on the 24th. So this is an aerial shot that shows you the 2 large parking areas. So there'll be some literature going out to the parents and staff and students on the new parking arrangements, and also student drop-off and pickup in the afternoons. This is a shot of the lobby from one of our security cameras. So you got the new lobbies opened up. Admin staff has moved into the reception area and admin space. And the gymnasium, the new glass is going in this week, and we'll turn that over next Tuesday when the students come back. And then a couple other projects we're working on. We had a local building committee for Gaines Elementary, so we will be starting the renovation at Gaines, hopefully kick it off later on this summer, and that's about a 12 to 18 month project. And then we also be doing the district warehouse expansion, be going on, starting probably in the next month or so out there. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Gilbreth, for that presentation. Are there questions, comments? The only thing I'll say is my son graduated from, oh,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, oh, okay. My son graduated from Clark Middle School about 4 years ago, and he just went into that building, and he's so upset, so upset. So thank you for all the work that you all did on getting that new building. It's absolutely beautiful. Ms. Davis?
So I didn't graduate from that building, but I did get promoted out of that building 60 years ago. It didn't look anything like this, and so every time I see it, I get really excited about the possibilities. And I did see them taking down the little blue tape that's up there, and I saw that, so I'm looking forward to the glass coming in on the front of the gymnasium. It truly is a place that is welcoming and warm. I got to attend an event there last week as well, where the community was invited in, and it just felt like a community that cared, and there was something there for everybody. So great job on that building, and certainly the services and the partners that are working with Clark Middle. Thank you.
All right, other questions? Yes, Mr. Evans?
Mr. Gilbreth, I see that Gaines Elementary renovation is in the design phase. Are we at the point where we're talking with the public yet about what that is?
Yes, we've had several meetings with the school personnel, and we had our first local building committee meeting, I think, a week or two ago. And so at that point, we'll probably have another one where everybody's invited as well. We're advertised and get the word out for that next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we are ready to move on to our next item. Thank you so much, Mr. Gilbreth. Item 10, our consent agenda, where I preemptively skipped to before. So these items, again, were discussed at our work session, and we will keep them on the consent agenda unless I hear otherwise at this point. Fantastic. All right, so I need a motion.
I move we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion made by Ms. Hensley, seconded by Mr. Evans. Can I get a vote? All in favor, raise your hand high and say aye to support the consent agenda. Okay. Are there opposed? Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I just didn't speak up fast enough on the pull something, so thank you.
Okay. So I think the vote was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, and that was Mr. Denson, Ms. Bagby, Ms. Hensley, Mr. Evans, and myself. I think,
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble down here. I had logged out, and so I couldn't see any update to see if, I was just trying to see if my updated list was here, and I couldn't see it because I was logged out, so.
in the presence of a
Yes.
vote that's already taken place, I don't know if we have a protocol for.
It's okay, I just needed to double check, but my vote is yes.
Oh, okay, okay. I think we're good, Mr. Pruitt. Okay. All right, so it looks like we have a unanimous vote for the consent. Nope. Oh, my gosh, okay. All right, fantastic. We've got 6 in favor and 1 opposed to the consent agenda. All right, so that motion passes. The items on the consent agenda will move forward. They've been approved. Now we are on item 11, our financial report and approval. Mr. Greiner?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good evening. So you have before you the financials as of December 31st, halfway through the year, if you can believe that, through our fiscal year, which ends June 30th. So actual revenues for the month of December, $13.2 million, about $3.1 million higher than what we budgeted. Again, that's just due to our property taxes. The remaining payments are coming in a little bit quicker this year than they have in prior years. Still confident we'll hit pretty close to where we budgeted on property taxes. So for the year, we're about $5 million higher than our budgeted amount, again, just due to those taxes coming in a little bit quicker. Actual expenditures were 21.5 million for December, which is typical, about 2 million more than we budgeted. The reason for that is, if you remember in the FY25 budget, we budgeted $2 million for deferred maintenance. What we do is we transfer that over to a separate fund as we complete projects. The project that Mr. Bailey presented to you tonight, the LED lighting, was one of those deferred maintenance projects, so we're just getting ready to, we like SPLOST, we keep those in separate funds just to be able to track those a little bit better. So that transfer was made in December. And I think I had it budgeted to happen later in the year. Again, it's just kind of a guess. So that's why for the year, we're about $666,178 more than our budgeted amount, but we're still tracking right along with our budget. I'm not worried about that at all. Again, keeping in mind, this is the time of year where our fund balance is the largest, just due to 57% of our revenue coming in October with our property taxes, and then November and December are also a little bit higher because of that. We get our QBE money on a monthly basis from the state or from DOE. So fund balance was 116 million. Again, budgeted about 112 just because of those differences above. That's why there's a difference. Still tracking towards between probably 55, 56 million at the end of the year. I know that seems kind of hard to believe where we're at, but those expenditures will start. Again, the revenues will start declining just due to the property tax money already being received, and our expenditures will stay pretty steady the rest of the year. So I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Griner. Do we have questions about the monthly report? Okay, we see no questions, so you are done. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Let's see. So we have to vote to approve it. Can I get a motion on the floor?
So move.
Second?
Okay, motion made by Dr. Gant and seconded by Ms. Davis. All in favor of approving the monthly report, raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that vote passes unanimously. All right, we are now at item 12. It's an action item to vote on HB House Bill 581 resolution to opt out. The document for the resolution is in our agenda, so I think we've all had an opportunity to review it at the work session, but if we need a couple extra minutes to review before discussion, I'm happy to just give us some time.
I'll make a motion for us to pass the resolution.
Okay, so now there's a motion on the floor. I need a second.
And I'll second.
Okay, so that opens the floor for discussion. Mr. Denson, since you are the motion maker, would you like to start the discussion?
Sure. I think, we've been able to discuss this and get input over the last month or so. And, with our number one role as a school board for us to do what is best for our students and their ability to succeed and learn, I think it is very clear that we need to opt out from this exemption. And especially with the current situation that we're facing with a lot of financial unknowns, a lot of funding that is not necessarily as guaranteed as it used to be. I think this is the best decision for our students and for our community.
Okay. Ms. Davis, you seconded the motion. Do you have a comment?
So my comments are similar to what Mr. Denson is saying. The ability to opt out is a one-time thing for the school board. And so given that we still have a number of unknowns and some variables out there that we simply don't have a contingency for, as I'm aware of, then I think our prudent choice is to take this first year to see if we can get some settlement on some things. And of course, with House Bill 92, on the heels of this, that gives cities and municipalities up to 5 years to opt out. I'm not confident that we can navigate that easily between county potentially changing their mind and us changing our mind. And so we're getting into that situation kind of like we are with the various TADs, where our income is suspect in terms of what we're going to have and what we're going to have to operate with.
Okay. Are there other comments, questions? Ms. Bagby?
Well, with this House Bill 581, I think we should opt in because I think we should go along with the voters, and we are not spending a lot of money the way we should. So I think we should respect the majority of the voters, and I think we should opt in on House Bill 581.
Okay. Other comments, thoughts? Dr. Gant and then Ms. Henson.
I was just going to mention, I think I agree with actually a few of the sentiments that have been said. I think with the level of uncertainty, there are a lot of things that we don't know about education and the way that we are headed. But even before then, each year that we've had to do a budget, we have had to, our district has done a great job, and I think local districts have as well because they encounter some of the same things, but QBE, having to deal with make work, funding that is already pretty restricted and not updated, issues and funding as it relates to transportation, our healthcare costs. Now, I think added to that is the uncertainty of our, the impact that vouchers will have. I know you mentioned that right now we are just not sure. And so these are all things that we're sort of already building before the current level of uncertainty. And it sort of seems like some of the conversations, they almost parallel some of the conversations we have when we're talking about the millage rate. And I think this would put us in a pretty sort of tight position if we did opt in. I think we still have the option, and not just the option, but I think the responsibility to look very closely at the things that the money, the finances that we are stewards over. So, to Ms. Bagby's point, I think there's always an opportunity to comb through our budget and be intentional and maybe even to do some auditing, although we have had audits, financial audits each year. But certainly I think, as a board member, that's one of our main responsibilities. And so I think that option is always out there. I just don't think it should be at the expense of putting ourselves in an even tighter situation. And so I do plan on supporting us opting out.
Okay. All right, are there any other thoughts? Ms. Hensley.
Yeah, so I stay pretty quiet most of the time. This has been a really big struggle for me, House Bill 581, because I do believe in the democratic process. I do believe in what voters say. I think that this bill was very confusing from the jump. I also think that it was almost decisive or divisive, giving counties the ability or constituents the ability to vote, but the language says that we have this one-time opportunity to opt out of it. Having said that, and in conjunction with everything my colleagues have said, with the complete unknowns of what's happening with our vouchers, the talk of expanding our vouchers, the people that are going to be hurt by this are really our most vulnerable students. And I have a lot of passion for those vulnerable students. It's not that I don't believe in the voice of the people. I do believe in the voice of the people. But even as some public comment came out, a lot of people didn't understand what this bill meant. They didn't know what the impact it was going to have on the school system. Also believe that we have a fiscal responsibility to spend tax dollars appropriately. And I do believe that that is something that this board should be called to do, that we really take a long, hard look at how those tax dollars are spent, that they are supporting our students in the best way possible, in the most fiscally sound way possible. But given all the unknowns that we have with what's coming from the federal government to state vouchers to everything else, I think we would be doing our students, which is what we're called to protect right now, a disservice by opting into this at this point. And so, again, I've had some sleepless nights over this one. But to protect the students of Clark County, I think we have no choice at this point than to opt out of it because of all the unknowns.
All right, Mr. Evans.
This is my second year here, and this has been the hardest thing because this past summer, with the help of Ms. Davis, I had a constituent who called me who had been taxed out of her home. And that bothered me. This person had been born, had been raised, gotten married, raised her family, was raising her grandkids in this house. And they told her that they were going to put a lien on her house and they were going to take it. And Ms. Davis and I were able to talk to some people, and we got things, because that's what we do. We're the public servants. I've heard a lot of numbers. 62% of the people voted for this particular thing. But the number that has stuck to me the most was one that Mr. Greiner gave last Thursday, which was $120. Now, $120 for me is a pretty good night at Wing House up here on Prince Street with my son watching football. But $120 for that constituent of mine is money she doesn't have. And so while my soul and my heart wants to opt out, my head tells me that by opting in, I'm going to help that person stay in their home. And that's going to help children too. I don't agree with a lot of the things that people who have come up here and have been wonderful in speaking about. I don't agree with some of their opinions and things about opting in. I know what opting in means. I know that, I had a really cool graphic that I had Ms. Moore make that I never really got to show, where I had all the teachers of the year, right? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about those people that I'm affecting their life. And when people say about, well, what about your surplus and things like that? The reason we have the surplus is because of what happened in 2008 when the economy crashed. And I was one of those people who was affected. I was told on a Friday that I didn't need to worry about coming back on Monday because they didn't have any money for me. So I know what I'm saying when I do this, and I wish the legislature had not put us in this position. I wish the legislature had the courage to say, this is how we're going to do this. And by the way, we're also going to fix the QBE system, and we're also going to do the things that need to be done to ensure that Georgia, which is the #1 state in the union to do business, remains that way by having a strong public education. So I respectfully agree with all my colleagues. This has not been a decision I have taken lightly. I have asked for guidance from some of you. I've had real conversations with you all, and I've listened to what you say, but I feel that for me, I will be voting to opt in on this situation. Thank you.
Okay. Are there other, did I miss anybody?
You're the last one, ma'am.
Okay. So I am going to opt out, or I'm going to vote to opt out. And like everyone in this room, this has been a really difficult decision. However, what I think is lost on many of the folks who look at our budget and say, well, you've got all this money sitting aside. When you open a savings account, it's supposed to be for a rainy day. And when we put aside 15% or 20% of our general fund to say, well, when things get really bad like they did in 2008, we need to keep our school buildings open for several months, That's what that 15 and 20% is sitting there for. It's not sitting there so that we can look at it and be really proud of how much money we're saving. It's sitting there so that we can keep our school buildings operating in times of rainy days. The other thing that, Mr. Greiner and others mention a lot is, school budgets look very different than other budgets. School budgets are 90% salary and fringe. 90% just about salary and fringe. So you're talking about taking 11%. If you're not going to lay folks off, if you're not going to take away health insurance, if you're going to keep CCSD employees employed, you're talking about not touching the 90% of that school budget and then touching the 10% of our instructional budget. So it's either personnel or instruction. That's what we're looking at cutting when we say shave off some money here and there. We're either cutting instruction or we're cutting personnel. That's the decision that we make. So as a school board, we have a responsibility to say, we want to keep our kids in our building, in school, in classes, so that's 10%, and we want to keep our personnel there so that they're teaching our kids and supporting our buildings. That's the 90%. What is there to cut? What are we asking to cut? So that's where my decision is, and that's why I feel really passionate about deciding to opt out. And I understand that it's not a popular decision among many of our voters, but this is where 70% of our school districts in the state are forced to make this decision, because it's either 90% of our personnel being affected and impacted, or 10% of our student instructional cost being impacted and affected. So that's it for me. There is a motion on the floor and a second, so if there are no other thoughts or comments, Superintendent Hooker, do you have any thoughts or comments?
Oh, Ms. Bagby.
Oh, Ms. Bagby?
Yes, I went to a training in November, and they discussed this House Bill 581 for 3 hours. So I think I have a clear understanding of what we need to do about this. And as I was looking at some of the papers that I received on December the 9th at the training here, I was instructed by 6 or 7 different people on the staff here. And one of the training persons, Dr. Scott, there's a the training manual from her. There are about 10 or 12 people on the payroll for that training, for different staff members. And one of the trainings, it said that they're going to have a in-service in April. And I was thinking, you're going to have an in-service in April, but school ends in May. So there are some places where we need to reappropriate monies in the school system. And that was just one of the trainings, because like I said, 6 or 7 of the staff trained me and gave me all this literature that I need to read. And as I go through this literature, each staff person has about 10 or 12 people under them that's receiving monies. So I think we need to opt in and honor the people. Thank you.
Superintendent Hooker?
Thank you, board members, for sharing your views. And as I say to the public at all times, our why are our students. In opting in, our students will suffer. I believe that we are making the right choice by opting out. You can look across the state of Georgia. As someone stated, 70% of the schools, whether your county are red or blue, they are opting out, because they realize the significance and the impact that it will have upon the schools, maybe not tomorrow, but 5, 10 years down the road. And so I applaud you for opting out.
Okay.
Dr. Gant has a comment.
Oh, yes, Dr. Gant.
I was just going to say, one thing I think for us to keep in mind is that, again, it's not like an either or. And so if there are areas that the board collectively wants to examine with a fine-tooth comb, to look at, okay, how do the services, how do they, what are the results? And if we feel collectively that the strategic direction that we're going in, we can get there with some of the goals with less spending, I still think there is room to do that. I think that, in fact, that is a part of our responsibility collectively to say to the superintendent, hey, okay, we've tried this way, and that way, and now we want to continue, but we collectively want you to reduce our spending in this particular area by a particular percentage point. So there is nothing that prevents us from doing that at any time, whether this bill is here or whether it isn't. I think just the piece for me is that every year, public education and Clark County School District, and perhaps other districts, we are asked to spend less. As a steward, we should, but there are a lot of different puzzle pieces that impact tax assessments. And it's rare that any other sort of institutional organization around the table is being asked to do that. And I think I mentioned that last year when we were talking about millage, or maybe the year before then. We don't have the Realtors Association here. We don't have realtors that are collectively saying, you know, instead of taking this percent, we're going to collectively take less. We don't have collective and intentional conversations with our tax assessor's office to understand what is going into the assessments that are being made. People that are selling their homes, we're not asking them, well, can you just sell it for $20,000 less? Because we don't, so I think there's a place to respect the voters, and I think we all do, regardless of where we fall. And there's a place to be intentional about spending. That is our duty as a board to communicate that to the superintendent. I just don't necessarily think that it cancels this out. So even if there are areas that we need to spend less, and I always think there are areas that we can spend, that doesn't mean that we then need to go in this direction where there's so much uncertainty and just putting our school district in a tight space. So,
All right, thank you for providing that additional clarity. Other thoughts before speak now or forever hold your, okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second, and this would be our time to vote. So all in favor, and the motion was to vote to opt out. So now this is either you support opting out, yay, or don't support it, nay.
Yeah, to support the resolution. Yeah.
The resolution to opt out, right? Okay, so we're all clear on the vote. Okay, all in favor of the motion made by Mr. Denson to approve House Bill 581 resolution to opt out, raise your hand high and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, raise your hand high, say nay.
Nay.
All right, so that motion passes 5-2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5-2. Okay, we are now at item 13, district information items from our staff. And item A is the Early Head Start Policy Council meeting minutes and reports. And that would be, is there any information or Mr. Denson? Yes, you're the representative.
Yeah, these are, again, minutes from our last meeting of last year. Yeah, no really additional comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we've got our Athens Community Career Academy report, and I believe that's Mr. Evans?
Yeah. So the Career Academy has begun starting accepting students. Students are getting emails and their families about their student being accepted into the programs. little personal note, my daughter got into the Career Academy, very excited about health sciences. So at our meeting, we learned about the new pathway about event planning, which, with the opening of the Aikens Ford arena and the different things that we have going on around here, that is something that has become a real need, and we need people for those types of things. So we got an introduction to that by the instructor of that particular course. So she's seen like accelerated growth. She had a few students last year, and now she's got a pretty nice chunk of kids in there. This month, the board will be meeting, and they will be going through a training where they will learn about other governance things that are occurring in different places. And so, ACCA is doing lots of good things, and their bistro. Check your emails, because that thing is open, and they've been doing pop-ups with different chefs around the community. Rashi was the last one that was there 2 Thursdays ago. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it because I had the flu. But so anyway, that's all I have to report, ma'am.
Thank you. And also check your emails, because there is a ribbon cutting on the 18th, I believe, at ACCA. Is it on the 18th? Do I have that right? I don't. Okay. So check your emails for that ribbon cutting for their newest pathway. That's happening next week. Okay. Athens Area Community Foundation. No.
In April.
Okay. So nothing to report there. Envision Athens, Mr. Denson.
We did not have a meeting this month, but we did have the summit on homelessness in Athens, Clarke County, and CCSD's own lead social worker, Dr. Angela Pope, spoke and presented there and did a fantastic job, and it was a really good event that I'm hoping some fruitful things come out of.
Thank you, Mr. Denson. And I also, I'm so sorry, but I skipped the Community Oversight Committee report from Ms. Davis.
Yes, the Community Oversight Committee did meet this week, I believe, and we're very excited about the audit findings for the SPLOST report. There were no findings, actually, so let me clarify that. No findings, so that was good news for everyone, and there were no questions about the audit as well. And other than that, everybody was excited about the already first meeting being held for gains. And then a lot of feedback on making sure that we engage the community more, and more of the faculty and people around the school, to make sure that we get the school designed for the situation that we have at Gaines today.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then, let's see. I've scribbled so much, I don't know where I am. Sustainability Committee, I think, is where. Yes. Okay. Yes, Mr. Denson.
We met earlier this week, and all of the subcommittees are just finalizing their recommendations, and which we will have, the committee will be reporting all of their recommendations to each other, so that those recommendations will then be brought before this board on the April meeting. So.
Okay. So they're on track. That's fantastic. Okay. I believe that's all. Are there any other announcements from any of the various boards that we are all reporting to and from? Nope, we're good? Okay. So we are now at item 15, and that is adjournment. We need a vote, a motion.
I so move.
I'll second.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor of adjourning? Raise your hand high, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you. We'll see you next month, everybody.